is she? Leo looked entirely too pleased with himself, then said, I'm planning to marry Haley. The world seemed to pause. Just briefly. A gardener laughed somewhere in the distance. A bird landed near the fountain. Everything carried on normally. Except something unpleasant had settled heavily in Layla's chest. You are kidding. The words left her mouth before she thought about it. Leo raised an eyebrow.
No.
I don't believe you, Layla said, her jaw tightening. Leo looked entirely too satisfied. Well, you're free to ask her yourself. She said yes. Not exactly. Layla hated how relieved she felt. Leo noticed. The man always notices everything. I asked, but she hasn't given me a definite answer. Layla looked away. The pool suddenly held her full attention. I should go, Leo said, standing up. Already. We'll talk later. His expression turned suspiciously innocent. Before Layla could respond, he walked away. Layla sat there alone. The breeze cooled the back of her neck. She wasn't sure which part of that conversation upset her more. The possibility that Leo had lied, or the possibility that he hadn't. The rest of the day dragged. Layla attended lunch with her parents. She walked through the gardens. She answered questions from visiting nobles. She even spent half an hour pretending to read. None of it worked. The thought kept returning. Like an irritating splinter she couldn't remove. By evening she finally gave up fighting it. The answer was simple. She would just ask Haley herself. A perfectly reasonable question. At least, that's what she told herself. Evening settled slowly over the palace. The sky beyond the windows deepened from gold to blue. Lanterns were lit throughout the halls, their warm glow reflecting against polished floors. In the past 1 hour, she had opened the same book 3 times. Read the same paragraph 4 times. And remembered none of it. A knock sounded at the door. Her pulse betrayed her before her face did.
Come in.
When the door opened, Haley stepped inside carrying a tray. Tonight it was tea and a small plate of pastries. The familiar scent arrived before she did. Good evening, Your Highness. Layla looked up from her book. You've gone back to calling me that? Haley smiled faintly. You are a princess. You called me queen yesterday. The name sounds good, said Haley, and Layla almost laughed. She set the tray down and began pouring tea. The room filled with a scent of mint and honey. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. Normally the silence felt easy. Tonight it felt crowded. She waited until Haley handed her a cup. Then she asked, Are you planning to marry Leo? The question landed like a stone dropped into still water, and Haley froze. Only for a second. Outside, wind rattled the leaves of a nearby tree against the window. Why are you asking? It was a reasonable question. Unfortunately, Layla didn't have a reasonable answer. I saw him today. Haley nodded slowly. He told you. He said he proposed. Silence followed. Haley looked down at the tray. A servant's daughter. A princess. Years of knowing where the boundaries were. Years of pretending they didn't hurt. Yes, Haley said quietly. Layla hated how calm she sounded. He asked, but I haven't given him an answer. Relief arrived before Layla could stop it. She quickly hid it behind a sip of tea. The mint tasted stronger than before. Do you intend to? Haley looked up. The question seemed simple. Yet something in her eyes changed. Something vulnerable. Does it matter? The words caught Layla off guard. Neither woman looked away. Then Layla did. It matters if it's what you want. Haley's shoulders dropped slightly. The change almost impossible to notice. I see. Layla knew she had said the wrong thing. Because what she wanted to say was different. What she wanted to say was, "Don't marry him." But those words remained trapped behind years of caution. Years of believing love complicated everything it touched. The silence stretched for a moment before Haley stood. I should let you rest. Layla looked up. The distance had returned again. That careful smile. That polite voice. I'll come by in the morning. Before she reached the door, Layla spoke. Haley.
She stopped.
For one hopeful second, she waited. The room felt very still. Then Layla said, "Good night." The hope disappeared from Haley's face so quickly. Good night, Layla. The door closed softly behind her. Layla sat motionless. The tea had already started cooling. A few minutes later, she rubbed a hand across her face. She had crossed half a kingdom to return here. She could negotiate with merchants, argue with nobles, outsmart politicians. Yet somehow she couldn't say a single honest sentence to Haley. Haley barely made it back to her room before the tears started. She shut the door behind her and leaned against it. The small servant quarters were quiet. A narrow bed stood against one wall. A wooden desk occupied the corner. Moonlight spilled through the window. She pressed a hand over her mouth.
Trying to stay quiet. Trying not to cry.
Failing at both. The worst part had never been Leo. The worst part was hope. Every time Layla looked at her, every time she smiled, every time she remembered little things about her nobody else remembered, hope appeared again. And every time, Layla stepped away before it could become anything real. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Her mother entered carrying folded laundry. The older woman immediately stopped. Haley? Haley wiped quickly at her face. Too late. Her mother set the laundry down. What happened? Haley looked away. The answer felt embarrassing, because it sounded childish when spoken aloud. Yet it hurt anyway. Layla doesn't care about me. Her mother's expression softened. Oh, sweetheart. If she did. Haley swallowed hard. She wouldn't be okay with me marrying Leo. The room became quiet. Haley stared at the floor. The wooden boards blurred slightly through her tears. She didn't try to stop me. Her mother sat beside her on the bed. Years of watching her daughter had taught her many things, including this one. Haley had loved Layla for a very long time, long before she understood what those feelings meant, long before Layla ran away, long before now. Her mother wrapped an arm around her shoulders. And for once, she didn't try to offer advice, because sometimes there wasn't any. Sometimes all a mother could do was stay beside her daughter while her heart broke, and hope the person responsible eventually came to her senses. The following days passed with a strange awkwardness neither of them knew how to fix. Not enough to be obvious. Just enough to be felt. Layla noticed it immediately. Haley still brought her tea every morning. Still smiled. Still asked if she needed anything. But something had changed. The conversations became shorter. The silences less comfortable. The moments that once lingered ended too quickly. And somehow that bothered Layla far more than she expected. 3 days later, clouds drifted lazily across the afternoon sky. Layla rode through town toward Jackie's estate. The air smelled faintly of rain. Jackie's home sat on a hillside overlooking rolling fields and distant forests. Less grand than the palace. Far more welcoming. A servant led Layla inside. She found Jackie in the library, curled up in an armchair with a book. "You know," Jackie said without looking up, "most people announce their arrival." Layla removed her gloves. "Most people don't spend all day hiding in libraries." Jackie finally glanced up. A grin spread across her face. There she is. For the first time in days, Layla relaxed slightly. The two women moved to the veranda overlooking the hills. A gentle breeze carried the scent of wildflowers from the fields below. A servant brought tea before quietly leaving them alone. For a while they talked about ordinary things. Life, travel, the palace. Jackie listened more than she spoke, which usually meant she was preparing something. Eventually, she set her teacup down. "So, how is Haley?" The tea nearly went down the wrong pipe. Jackie's smile widened. "That's an interesting reaction." Layla placed her cup down carefully. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you don't." Jackie leaned back. The chair creaked softly. "You know, everyone thought you ran away because of Leo." Layla stared at the distant fields. "Didn't I?"
No.
The answer came immediately.
Certain.
Layla didn't respond. Jackie watched her. "You ran because marrying Leo was simple." Layla looked at her. Jackie continued. "Loving Haley wasn't." The words landed harder than Layla expected. For a moment, all she could hear was the wind moving through the trees below. "You are wrong," said Layla. "Not about this." Layla looked away first. "You asked me to watch over her before you left." Layla's chest tightened. A memory surfaced. A rainy evening. A packed carriage. Jackie standing beside the gate. And one final request. "Watch over Haley for me." At the time, she had convinced herself it was innocent. Now it sounded ridiculous. Jackie folded her arms. "Do you know how obvious that was?"
No.
It was. The wind lifted a few loose strands of Layla's dark hair. She tucked them behind her ear. An unusually nervous gesture. "You love her." This time Layla didn't argue. The silence itself became an answer. Jackie's expression softened. For a long moment, Layla stared out at the countryside. Fields stretched toward the horizon. Simple. Peaceful. The kind of life Haley deserved. Eventually she spoke. Quietly. "I love her." The admission felt strangely relieving. And terrifying at the same time. Jackie remained silent. "I keep thinking about what happens after." "What happens after what?" "If she chooses me." Jackie frowned slightly. Layla rested her forearms on the railing. The wood felt warm from the afternoon sun. "My life has never been simple." She looked toward the horizon. "I left the palace to escape one complicated life." A bitter smile touched her lips. "And somehow I managed to build another complicated one. Business. Politics. Problems." Always problems. If she's with me, she inherits all of it. The words felt heavier spoken aloud. Jackie considered that. Then shook her head. You know what your problem is? Layla glanced at her. You keep deciding what Haley wants without asking her. The answer irritated her because it sounded suspiciously reasonable. Jackie stood, brushed invisible dust from her clothes. And for someone who's supposed to be intelligent, you've spent years avoiding one conversation. Layla rolled her eyes. You're welcome, said Jackie, smiling. The sun was lower by the time Layla returned to the palace. Long shadows stretched across the grounds. The scent of evening flowers drifted through the air. For the first time in days, her thoughts felt clearer. Jackie had annoyed her thoroughly, which usually meant Jackie was right. As she crossed the front courtyard, movement caught her eye. Layla stopped. Near one of the garden paths stood Haley and Leo,
Talking.
laughing. Something unpleasant rose immediately inside her. Unexpected. Jealousy. The realization annoyed her even more. She started walking toward them before she could reconsider. The closer Layla got, the more the conversation bothered her. Not because Haley was doing anything wrong. Not because Leo was. Yet the sight still irritated her. The evening breeze moved through the gardens, rustling leaves overhead. Golden sunlight filtered through the trees and painted shifting patterns across the stone path. Haley was smiling. That alone shouldn't have mattered. It mattered anyway. By the time she reached them, both had noticed her. Your Highness, Haley said. The formal title again. Layla disliked it more every day. Leo, meanwhile, looked entirely too amused. That irritated her further. Haley. Her voice came out calm. Far calmer than she felt. Would you mind giving us a moment? Haley glanced between them, clearly confused. But she nodded. Of course. She walked toward the palace. The wind caught a few loose strands of her hair as she disappeared through the courtyard doors. The moment she was gone, Leo folded his arms. That looked serious. It is. His smile faded slightly. Should I be worried? Probably. Leo blinked. For the first time all day, he looked genuinely uncertain. Layla took a step closer. What would your boyfriend think if he learned you're chasing a girl? Silence. Absolute silence. Even the distant sounds of the courtyard seemed to disappear. Leo stared at her. Layla stared back. The expression on his face was almost worth the last several miserable days. You. For once, Leo seemed unable to find words. Layla raised an eyebrow. That's disappointing. How do you know that? Now it was Leo's turn to sound alarmed. A small victory. I've known you for a long time, Leo. Long enough to know things about you that no one else knows. Leo rubbed a hand across his face. The carefully composed man she'd known for years suddenly looked exhausted. Do my parents know?
No.
The relief was immediate. Visible. For a moment, Layla felt guilty. Only for a moment. Leo pointed at her. I was helping you. By causing problems? Layla asked. I wanted to see how far I can go before you finally snap. I assume this means you finally admitted you love her. Layla's silence answered for her. Leo stared, then laughed. A loud, genuine laugh. People crossing the courtyard turned to look. You came back because of her. Layla said nothing. Leo pointed toward the palace. And somehow you've still managed to make this complicated. Leo shook his head. I don't have the energy for this. He started walking away. Where are you going? Home. You were just here. I've suddenly become very tired. Layla almost smiled. After several steps, Leo stopped. Without turning around, he spoke. She loves you, you know. The words caught Layla off guard. The courtyard suddenly felt very still. Leo finally glanced over his shoulder. Try not to take another 2 years figuring out the rest. Then he left. This time there was no teasing smile.